Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, SPC-205. Whatever time you're consuming this little artifact of academic media, I am once again, Vic McInnes, your public speaking instructor, coming to you live from the sun-drenched campus of Aiken Technical College, located, as we all know, here in the lovely heart of the Graniteville, South Carolina metropolitan area. Remember, Aiken Technical College, your number one choice for your number one choice for public speaking education. But you know, that's true too. If you want to take a good public speaking course, go to Aiken Technical College. We're your number one choice for higher education here in Aiken County. I cannot speak today, but we're moving forward because you need this lecture, okay? We're closing in. Persuasive speaking is one of our last lectures. I think we got one, maybe two more. Sometimes I combine those two into one. We'll see how it works out. Today we are talking about persuasive speaking and how to be persuasive when giving a public speech. I want to determine the difference between two different things though. Coercion is not persuasion. Okay? Let's get past that, because I have had people that would give persuasive speeches that would think they could get up there and say, hey, listen, if you don't do what I tell you, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill your family. I'm going to kill your pets. That's not persuasion. Okay? Coercion is seeking to change someone's attitudes through threats or force. Let's pretend this is my gun, okay? And I walk up to you and I say, give me all your money or I'm going to kill you, okay? You give me your money. Have you been persuaded? No, you have been coerced. Coercion is illegitimate. In other words, it's not morally correct. It's not legally correct in most cases. Persuasion is legitimate. Okay? Persuasion is a legitimate effort to affect others' attitudes through providing the audience information so they can modify their own behaviors and attitudes. A couple of key things there. Number one, providing information. That's why we do public speaking, is to provide information. So they change behaviors and attitudes. You need to remember, every persuasive speech has the goal of changing or reinforcing audience behaviors and attitudes. Okay? Reinforcing or changing audience behaviors and attitudes. So the first thing you need to know about persuasive speaking, as we've discussed before about how audience analysis is an ongoing process, persuasive speaking has a greater reliance on audience analysis than any of the other speeches we've talked about so far. Okay? How do you know how to move your audience if you don't know where they're already at? Are you looking for a change of behavior or attitude? Or are you looking to reinforce an existing behavior or attitude? Okay? If they agree with you, you're just interested in reinforcing their current behaviors and attitudes. If they disagree with you, okay, if they're neutral, three possibilities. One, they agree, in which case you want to reinforce. Okay? They're neutral. These markers these days are horrible. Are you going to be able to read that? I know this is the view of me you guys love so much. Okay, well, let's go back to the red one. The red one actually worked a lot better. They can be neutral. Now, if someone is neutral on your topic, there's only two reasons. They're uninformed or they're unengaged. Sum it up in two ways. They don't know and they don't care. Or they don't care. All right? And then finally, and that's only for being neutral. Once someone is informed on a topic, they should take a side, one way or the other. Now, you can be informed on a topic and just not care. be unconcerned, be unengaged. That's fine. Okay? But you need to deal with them, with both of these. You need to inform them and you need to engage them if you think they're neutral. And then finally, okay, they may disagree with you. Right? If they disagree, you have to change their minds. This depends, and again, we're going all the way back to Aristotle for this. This depends on your personal credibility. Over and over again, people who have studied public rhetoric or public persuasion have found over and over again that your personal credibility, your ethos, is what's going to enable you to be persuasive. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you this. Acknowledge your differences. If you know you're walking into a situation where the majority of the audience is going to disagree with you, don't hide from it. Openly acknowledge it. Okay? Why? Well, and again, a lot of people will jump up and say, well, isn't that just accentuating the fact that the people don't agree with you? Well, you know what? They're going to figure out pretty quick that you guys aren't in agreement. They're going to know. Okay? And what do you get from not talking about it and not acknowledging it? Well, there's one of two possible answers. Number one, you're scared to bring it up. Or two, you're ignorant of the attitudes of the audience at the beginning of your presentation. All right? Those are the only two possible reasons why you wouldn't bring it up. Again, go back to, you're either uninformed or you don't care. But if you acknowledge it, number one, you show strength. Hey, listen, I understand most of you don't agree with me on this. I completely understand. But my guess is you haven't been informed about everything, and the people who've talked to you before have withheld some information or shaded some information or put some spin on it. And what we're going to do is we're going to get past that. That's you. Acknowledge it. Makes you seem like you're confident in your position. Second thing is, it gets everything out on the board immediately. Okay? Shows that, if you acknowledge your disagreements, shows that you're coming from a position of strength and that you're aware and informed about the audience. Okay? So let's talk about what will keep you from being persuasive. So, these are things that will keep you from changing attitudes or behaviors. These aren't saying people are good or bad. These just are simple things that we all have to deal with. The first thing we want to talk about is selective perception. Selective perception. We can't, in any given day, we are bombarded with stimuli. Okay? I know at home, I keep track of all your emails because every one of your emails is precious and important to me. But at home, one of my emails accounts got like 53,000 emails backed up that I've never read. I can't read all of that stuff. I can't watch every show on TV. I can't expect, even the things in my physical presence. How many times have you ever had somebody look at you and go, I walked by you yesterday and you pretended like I wasn't even there? You have to go, because I didn't see it. I literally walked past you. Okay? We can't absorb all the stimuli, so we filter out a lot of data. We filter out a lot of things, and we just don't process them. If it doesn't agree with our view of the world, we just don't absorb it. It's there for us to witness, but we just don't absorb it. Way, way long time ago, over 30 years ago, because I just celebrated my 30th wedding anniversary, I was dating a young lady who came from a very privileged background. Let's put it bluntly, her parents were rich. I mean, really, really rich. She grew up in a very, very exclusive neighborhood outside of Washington, D.C. Her parents were paid for her to go to a very exclusive private school. She went to a very small, exclusive college in the northeastern United States. She had not really, and it was amazing to me that she was incredibly intelligent, but really just didn't understand how the world worked. And so we were going to see a Baltimore Orioles game. And the way to get from where we worked to Memorial Stadium, where the Orioles were playing back in the late 1980s, was you had to go right through the worst sections of downtown Baltimore. Okay? And for those of y'all who have come from urban areas in the north or have lived in urban areas in the north, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Empty houses that have been boarded up, some that are just derelict. You know, people, young men gathered on street corners because the unemployment rates are so high. All right? Cops everywhere. We drove through that, and then we drove back out through it. And as we were getting on the interstate, I made the comment, it's really depressing to see the state that such a great city like Baltimore has gotten to. And she looked at me and said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, we just drove through some really neighborhoods that are experiencing tough times. She was going like, I don't know what you mean. And then I ran down all the things that we had literally driven through the middle of. She just had not seen any of it. We were having a conversation. She was focused on me. She goes, well, I don't think it's, and then we had a more in-depth discussion about how she didn't believe that certain urban areas were experiencing tough socioeconomic times. She could not get beyond her privilege the way she had grown up. Okay? She just could not, she never perceived it. Now, similar to this is selective recall. Now, everybody has dealt with selective recall. It's summed up in the phrase, well, that's not how I remember it happening. Okay? Over time, we will change memories to suit a narrative, whether it's correct or actually historically correct or not. Okay? We filter through it later. You guys look back at you know, and I hear people say this, and now they're getting to be my age. I used to say, people that were older than me, you know, I just wish we could go back to the good old days. Well, you know, you had polio in the good old days. You had smallpox in the good old days. You had Jim Crow laws in the good old. What good old days are you talking about? They filter out all the bad stuff and simply remember the good stuff. It's like if you've ever seen any King Arthur movies, medieval movies, you know, knights and princesses and towers and all that stuff. You know, that all looks really romantic and really fun. Average age, most men died before they got to 50. Plague used to we select the stuff we want to remember so that our memories are happier. Or the opposite way, we select the things that we want to make us angry. I have a friend, let's call him a friend, who does not like his mother-in-law. And I will say this, his mother-in-law has given him plenty of reasons not to like her. I have witnessed his mother-in-law not being a horrible person all the time. In fact, sometimes she's quite lovely. But he doesn't remember any of those things. He does not like I won't say he doesn't not like the. He hates her. Really, really intensely dislikes her. So when I say, hey, what about that time she made you a birthday cake? All he goes, well, yeah, but you don't remember that immediately after that, she told me, he only wants to remember the bad things that happened. So that's selective recall. The other is selective exposure. That's where if I see something that I don't want to deal with, I'm just not going to deal with it. Are they going to say something on Fox News about what a great president Donald Trump is? I'm not going to watch it. Whether or not they've got justification for saying it, don't care. Not watching. Is Rachel Maddow going to tell me that Donald Trump is committed several crimes? Don't care. Not watching it. Why? Because it doesn't continue the narrative I support. I disagree with it, so I'm not going to expose myself to it. Okay? There is the degree or how public your commitment is. I have a friend of mine who's an Alabama fan. Has admitted to me on multiple occasions that he likes Auburn. He has said, I'm an Auburn fan too. I like Auburn. I love to see Auburn win. And he's even said, in fact, there's sometimes when I like to see Auburn beat Alabama. I was going like, well, if there are times when you want Auburn to beat Alabama, you are an Auburn fan. Why don't you admit that you're an Auburn fan? Well, my folks were Alabama fans. My grandparents were Alabama fans. My whole family's Alabama fans. So he's got that degree of commitment. Plus, I've been saying I'm an Alabama fan for 50 years. What am I going to do? Not say it anymore? Tell people I've suddenly become an Auburn fan? You know what that's going to make me look like? My response to that is always intelligent. It'll make you look smart. He doesn't appreciate that comment. But he has publicly said he loves Alabama. He's an Alabama fan. So to be able to step away from that with the degree of commitment he has is never going to happen. So if someone has made public comments, it takes a lot to walk that back. Okay? So selective perception, I will not process stimuli that I don't like. Selective recall, I'm not going to remember things that I don't like. Selective exposure, I'm not even going to go and expose myself to those things that I don't like or don't agree with. And then there's the degree and public commitment. The degree of commitment and public commitments. Okay? If someone, is a dyed-in-the-wool fan of anything or supporter of anything, and it's really an integral part of their being, okay, it's very difficult to change those attitudes. So let's talk about some ways to overcome those. Ways to persuade people. First of all, inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning. That is where you make broad generalizations based on a few specific observations. From one to many. In a survey of 200 high school juniors in South Carolina, it was found that 110 failed a standard math test. Therefore, South Carolina high school students are lagging in math. We've taken 210 or 200 high school seniors in South Carolina and testing them, and then made a generalization about every high school senior in South Carolina. Okay, sometimes it will be the few to the many. It is the basic formula. We've discussed this already for a public opinion poll. I'm going to survey 1,500 people, and then I'm going to extrapolate what I think 330 million people in the United States think and feel. Okay? But what if the observed population doesn't represent the whole of the class? Well, that is called a hasty generalization. Okay, a hasty generalization. I met a guy from South Carolina once who was about as dumb as a stump. Therefore, all people from South Carolina, pretty stupid. Okay, is that true? Absolutely not. It can't be true. All right? Hasty generalizations. Now, there is reasoning by analogy. And that is 1-to-1. Where the perceived similarities are used as a basis to infer other similarities. So in other words, if A and B are similar in characteristics 1, 2, and 3, we can assume that they will be similar in characteristic 4. All right? And you hear this all the time. And I deal with this a lot. And I'm not trying to paint myself a victim. I kind of enjoy this status. I mean, you guys can look at me. You can see me right now. I am a 59-year-old white male. I live in Columbia County, Georgia. I have a house that falls within a specific or a general cost. People who live around me know how much I paid for my house. And it was a bit more expensive than average for Columbia County. Okay, I drive a pickup truck. I went to Auburn University. So a lot of people think, hey, listen, there's Vic. He's white. He's a male. He's in his 50s. He lives in an upper socioeconomic area in a very strong Republican county. So a lot of my neighbors are a little shocked over the last 5 years, 2 presidential races. Well, actually, the second presidential race, they knew what they were getting, so most of them stopped talking to me. But 1 presidential race and a governor's race were a little shocked when they found out I may not have been as strong of a Republican as they are. In fact, I might not even be a Republican. And I had a guy down the block from me, he lives down at the bottom of the little hill in front of my house. Auburn graduate. We commiserated over a horrible season we were having a couple of years ago. And then 2016 rolled around. He rolled down his window and said, hey, got to go vote for Trump tomorrow. And I looked back at him and went, no, I don't. He got very upset with me because he assumed, based on all these characteristics that we shared, Auburn grads, white males, certain age, that we thought the same on everything. And in many cases, that may be true. We may both love John Wayne movies. Okay? We both support or really, when he was talking to me, we both showed that we shared a common deep interest in Auburn football. But when it came down to that last point, we had run into what is known as a false analogy. A false analogy is where you try to compare members of the same class or people who have or show a number of similarities and assume they are completely similar. Okay? All right. The last one we want to talk about is deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning. And this is where you go from the many to the one or to the few. If most people are like this, then everyone is like that. And the most basic of this is all men are mortal. Plato is a man, therefore Plato is mortal. Okay? Be aware that placing someone in a group doesn't necessarily fit all the time. Okay? Like one thing I learned very quickly here in the CSRA was that placing people in one group as citizens of the Central Savannah River area did not fit a lot of people. I just, the first 6 months I was here, I rarely, if ever, heard when reading local news stories about Augusta this, Aiken that. I saw a lot of stuff, and again, this was selective perception on my part that everybody thought they lived in the CSRA. Then I came across the river and became an adjunct faculty member here at Aiken Technical College, and I made the comment that, well, just implying that Georgia and South Carolina within Aiken, Columbia, Richmond County was all the same. Oh, I got schooled really fast. People here in Aiken County, people in the counties surrounding will be very quick to tell you they are radically different from Augusta, Georgia. Okay? Now, there's no quick and easy, like false analogy. Deductive reasoning is just you have to be aware of it. Okay? There are some other logical fallacies you need to be aware of as consumers of public communication. First is a false authority. Can Kim Kardashian tell me about what hairstyles are in this week? How to do contour makeup? Yeah, sure. She seems to be pretty good at it. She's made a lot of money doing it. Should she be telling me what kind of nutritional supplements I need? I'm not really sure she's qualified to do that. And yet she does. And there have been influencers who over the last couple of years have advocated that you buy nutritional supplements after the Food and Drug Administration had put those supplements onto a list of things that could cause you serious illnesses. Okay? I once saw, I believe it was Ted Danson. He's been on Mr. Mayor. He was on The Good Place. He was on Cheers. He's a comedic. He's a national treasure, to be honest with you. He's just a comedic genius. He was at Congress talking about the biodiversity in the oceans. Does Ted Danson know one thing about biodiversity in the oceans? I doubt it. But he's famous, so he gets cameras. Should we listen to him? You can. I wouldn't take him as the final source on stuff like that. So be aware of false authorities. There's what's called it's actually argumentum ad hominem. Okay? An argumentum ad hominem, an attack on the person. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but geez, why should I listen to somebody from South Carolina? Come on, give me a break. You people back down there are all stupid and backwards. You marry your cousins all the time. South Carolina, I'm not listening to anybody from South Carolina. Okay? That's an argument, that's an attack on the person. That deals in no way with the logic of their arguments. There is the one that you hear all the time. I heard this here at Aiken Technical College. An appeal to tradition, summed up by the phrase, we've always done it that way. Okay? One of the things I really dislike the most about teaching here at Aiken Technical College is spring semester, we take a break less than 2 weeks before finals starts. Why? Because there's a golf tournament in Augusta. Okay? Now, in the past, I can understand that there used to be a time when the whole CSRA would shut down for masters and tens of thousands of people would have to go work over there. My experience has been over the last 5 years, and in talking to a lot of people here from the CSRA, is it's not like it used to be. Yeah, when I was working downtown Augusta during Masters Week, we were waved off and told to work from home. Although I did have to go into my office to pick up some papers, and I shot in and shot out because since everybody was at home, nobody was on the streets. Okay, I timed it to where I went to my office about the first, when everybody was teeing off, and I was there in a shot. It was great. So after I'd been here about a year and we were rolling into this next year, and I'm going like, hey, why don't we look at whether or not students really want us to take Masters Week off? Maybe we back spring break up a couple of weeks so we're not coming in and having to cram those last 9 days of class aren't so insane. What I was told by someone I work for, we've always done it that way. It's never going to change. We've always done it that way. And my response was, well, should it change? Should we maybe survey students and find out what they want to do? It's not going to make any difference. Never going to change. It's always happened that way. Okay. Good to go. I'll do my job. Okay? So, the 3 fallacies you should always be aware of. Appealing to a false authority, an argumentum ad hominem, or an attack on the person, and an appeal to tradition, saying we've always done it that way. Okay, so we've talked about how you don't, some of the obstacles to persuasion. We've talked about some reasoning and some fallacies. So let's talk about how you persuade people. First of all, and this should be everybody's baseline, present evidence and reason. Make your argument relevant to the audience and hit them with evidence. Stand up straight, bam. Here's what you should know. Here's why it affects you. Here's what you need to do when you leave today. Okay? Use the strongest argument you have and focus on it. If there is a high personal relevance to the audience, make it relevant to them. And repeat your arguments often. Hey, so we're going to be talking about, here's my Clark Hill Reservoir speech. Okay, so we've talked about the 1998 fish population survey. Let's talk about the 2012 fish population survey at the end of that one. So we've talked about the 2 fish population surveys, and we've talked about that massive decline in the fish population over a very short period of time. Now I want to tell you what's been causing it at the end of that. So we've talked about the massive decline in fish population, and I've told you what's causing it. Now I'm going to tell you what we're going to do about it. Okay, your plan of action. Okay? So repeat those, and that goes for any of these arguments we're going talk about. There's what we call foot in the door. And again, a lot of these I'm giving you just so you can see it when they're doing it, making you critical consumers of communication. Foot in the door is where you get approval for just something small, knowing that you're going to come back later. You're responsible for getting the county, Aiken County, to beef up the maintenance budget for the schools. If I come in and I go, hey, listen, I need $16 million. They're going to go, hey, listen, I need 150 grand to fix the air conditioners at North Augusta High School. They're not working. I need 160 grand to make that happen. All right, 160 grand, we can make that happen. Hey, listen, now that we fixed the air conditioners at North Augusta, I got these 2 elementary schools over here that are in the exact same circumstances. I'm going to need another $90,000, and you keep getting piece after piece after piece. Foot in the door is really good if you know you're going to be allowed to come back and make more requests. And once you get that track record of getting yes answers, they're more likely to continue giving you yes answers. Okay? Salesmen do this all the time. The worst one, before we got married, I went with my wife to help her buy a car, which was a massive, massive mistake. Because she knew nothing about cars. The salesman found every salesman we saw just got really solidly pissed off at me because I admitted that I was just her boyfriend. We weren't even dating that long, and I was asking a lot of questions. And finally, one of them just looked at me and said, are you going to be the person making the decision about whether or not this car gets bought? And I went, probably not, no. And he goes, then why am I talking to you? Okay, but one of the things I saw the salesmen do is they would get you to answer a lot of questions in the affirmative. Hey, it's got 4 wheels. You think a car should have 4 wheels, don't you, Barbara? Well, yes, I do. And look, under the hood, it has an engine. Cars should have engines, shouldn't they? Why, yes, they should. And if you look in here, it's got a steering wheel and pedals. Pedals and steering wheels are good, aren't they? Yes, they are. And it's $24,000. Would you like to go buy it right now? Why, yes, I would. Okay? That's foot in the door. The opposite of that is door in the face. Door in the face. And if you haven't done door in the face yourself, personally, I don't think you were a teenager. And I used to use door in the face with my parents all the time. My curfew was 10:30. Hey, Mom, Dad, party going on over at the Maze's house. We're going to hang out, watch TV. There's a movie coming on at 10 o'clock. It's the late show. Then it's going to be some time for me to, hang out and talk for a little bit. I know my curfew is 10:30. Could I stay out till 1 this Saturday night? What are my parents going to say? No. Well, okay, well, what about 11:30? Can I get an extra hour just so I can see the first half of the movie? No. Well, okay, my parents knew the deal from word one. Okay? And they would say, no, 10:30, stop playing this. But when you ask for something more than you expect to get so that you can prove how reasonable you are. And again, car salesman. Hey, what kind of car are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for a cheap minivan. And this is the first car I bought, after we got married. We bought a minivan, one of the very first Plymouth Voyagers. It sucked the cool right out of it. But we had to have it because we were having kids. So the guy, I said, listen, I'm looking for a reasonably priced minivan with not a whole lot of options. Okay, so he walks me over and my wife over to what was called a Town and Country. It was a Voyager with every stinking option loaded on it. It was going to be, and this was back in 92, 93. It's going to be $48,000, which was a hell of a lot of money for a car 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Okay? And I'm like going, dude, I clearly can't afford this. I asked, yeah, but let's just get in. It's the same as the other ones. Let's just get you in here and give you a little spin around. Let's see how it feels. Ooh, look at the stereo. It's got a 6 CD changer. Okay, that was a big deal back in the day. Okay, we didn't have iPods. All right, and he would just show it, and then he's going like, isn't this wonderful? So then when he takes you down one step to the $38,000 one, you think you're getting a bargain. And you buy, well, the thought is you buy that one. Me, I just kept getting annoyed and saying, hey, listen, let me go look at that one over there. It's $18,000. That's what I can actually afford. Okay, so door in the face, and also you could, door in the face with our example of outfitting and fixing the schools, is you go in and you say, here's my proposal for $16 million. We can't give you $16 million. Well, okay, then can you give me 1.8 mil just to do the essentials? Okay. All right. Ask someone you're not going to, get to see what you can get away with. Okay? Show that it agrees with existing attitudes. Attitudes. I used to work for a veterans nonprofit over in Augusta. People would come to us and say, hey, listen, we'd like for you to look at this and give us sort of your stamp of approval. Let us use your logo to show that we're supporting veterans. And one of my jobs was to look at all these things, and some of them were really good. We were happy to put our name on it. It didn't charge. We generally didn't ask for donations. We just said, yeah, this is going to be great for veterans. We would like to work with you on this. Please feel free to use our logo. Worked out really well. So somebody was building an industrial park, a bunch of warehouses. And they came into us and said, hey, listen, before we go to the zoning board to get approval, we would like for you guys to look at this and show that it's veterans friendly so that we can say we're working with you and we can use your logo. And that wound up on my desk. And I looked at it, I read through it, and I called him up and said, hey, I'd like to come out and have a meeting with you. So I drove out there, had a meeting with him. And I said, hey, this all looks great, and I'm sure it's going to be great for Columbia County or Richmond County. He said, but I'm not sure how this benefits veterans. And they said, well, it's going to be, as many as 350 jobs. Now, yeah, again, I know how this is going to benefit Richmond County. I just don't understand how it's going to benefit veterans. And they said, well, if the businesses hire veterans, it would be good for veterans. I said, okay, so are you, as the owners of the property, the landlords, are you going to give like discounts for rent to people who hire veterans? Or are you going to especially lease to companies that hire veterans or have a veterans preferential hiring program? Are you guys going to do any of that? And they're like going, oh, no, we're not going to do that. No. And I'm like going, so how is this benefiting veterans? Well, we're assuming that some of the people that are getting hired will be veterans, and that would be beneficial to those veterans. And I'm like going, okay, so I went back. They wound up offering us a big chunk of money, and we still turned it down because it was just such a specious claim. We didn't go with it. Well, it turns out the zoning board didn't buy it anyway. They were trying to show that their poorly conceived and poorly placed industrial park, okay, was in agreement with everybody's existing attitude that, hey, we love veterans, okay? I don't know that our support would have helped. What it would have done would have made us look like we were selling out, okay? Now, and then there's appeal to an alternative value system. Back during the Obama administration came to Congress with a big package for solar energy. And this was even worse in the day when a lot of people on one side of the political aisle or the other were saying global warming is not a thing, we shouldn't even worry about it. So there's a couple of arguments that you can be made. You say you should approve it because of global warming. Man, did not work, did not get anywhere. Nobody wanted to approve money to fight global warming. So then they said, hey, listen, if we approve this, there's going to be jobs. If we're building most of the solar panels used in the world, and everybody's going to be using solar panels pretty soon, that's going to be more American jobs. And the global warming's not a problem. People went, I don't know about global warming, but I like jobs. Jobs are good. And then they said, if we don't do it, the Chinese will. So if you vote for this, we get to beat the Chinese. Beat those commies. And a lot of legislators, members of the House of Representatives and Senate from the South, suddenly got on the train that if we don't do it, the commies will. Same proposition, exact same bill. The Obama administration appealed to what they thought was an existing attitude. They appealed to what they thought was an existing attitude, and it didn't work, so they quickly shifted to appealing to an alternative value system. Okay? And it worked. It got passed. There's a couple of others I want to talk about. All right? So first of all, offering a reward that is legitimate, but you have to be careful. For those of y'all who are parents out there, for those of y'all who can remember, maybe some of you are even still in high school, some of our early college people, did your parents, or as a parent, did you ever say, little Johnny, if you get on the AB honor roll, I'll give you $5. If you get straight A's, I'll give you $10. My parents never did that. They just, if you come in with a D, you get punished. There was no payment for doing well. You just get a bad grade. Yeah, it was the carrot and stick without a carrot. But if you pay your kid, and I've seen this happen, if you pay your kids for good grades, what's going to happen next year? Well, you gave me $5 for being on the AB honor roll when I was at 5th grade. I am in 6th grade. It is much harder. I expect a commensurate increase in my salary. When you start offering people a reward, if you're going to have to go back to them and persuade them again, they're going to want a bigger reward. Nobody's going to be satisfied with what you paid them last time for the same actions. Okay? Similarly, is arousing fear. You ever notice that in scary movies, good scary movies, they don't scare you and scare you and scare you, and it just, after a while, you're just like going, okay, he's in the closet, please, can we do something else for a while? Yes, he's got a machete, we know. After a while, you just attenuate to it, okay? But they have to keep ramping up each scary thing to keep you engaged. If you go back and watch, the only real slasher movie I ever liked was the original John Carpenter's Halloween from like 1978. Only 4 people die in the whole movie. They kill somebody fairly quickly in the first couple of minutes, and then they space it out, and he brings you up to this high level of fear, and then he drops you back down, and he builds it up again, and then he drops it back down, okay? When you're using fear to persuade, here's the problem. You have to keep making whatever scares them worse, or they're not going to be afraid anymore. Okay? Best example about this, argue the issue all you want. But what you cannot argue is when it came to immigration with President Trump, he used fear as a tactic and as a persuasive tool. Okay? First, it was just the southern border is empty and people are just flowing, and it's going to cost you your job. These illegal aliens are costing you your job, and you will be out of work if we don't do something. He made you fear for your job. Okay? And I'm not going to argue whether or not it was right or wrong. I'll just say it was very effective. Okay? And that was 2015, 2016. As things began to ramp up toward those 2018 midterms elections, telling you to be afraid for your job just wasn't getting it anymore. So then he began to accentuate illegal aliens are coming here to commit violent crimes, which isn't factually provable. But he kept saying it. And pretty soon, a lot of people were going like, yeah, I know, violent crime, blah, blah, blah. What else you got? So then it became caravans invading the country. And he declared a state of emergency. He sent the army to the border. But eventually, if you take the results of the 2018 midterm elections, after 3 years of hearing it, people had kind of attenuated to it. They were like, I'm not seeing it. Here's the other thing. If you're going to continuously scare someone or use fear, sooner or later, that fear takes us back to where we opened today. You're going to have to turn it into an active threat. Okay? It's that simple. You're going to have to turn it into an active threat. And that becomes coercion. Okay, so let's talk about organizing your persuasive speech. We've gone over a whole bunch of organizational techniques: chronological, problem solution, topical, all the other ones. All of them can work. Okay? So you're going to have, but here's the thing. When you start out planning your speech, you need to start with what you want out of your audience. What do I want from them when we're done? Your speech is going to end with a call to action. So it's going to be organized just like every other speech you've done in this class. You're going to have an attention device. You're going to give a statement of purpose. You're going to give us your credentials. You're going to give us a preview of your main points. You're going to give us a main point. You're going to transition to your first main point. You're going to give us your main point and the subpoints. You're going to transition to your second main point. You're going to give us the subpoints there. You're going to transition to your third main point, if you have one. Okay? And you're going to give us all those subpoints. You're going to transition to your conclusion. You're going to restate your purpose, review your main points, and then you're going to give us the call to action. You always end a persuasive speech with a call to action. That is where you clearly tell the audience what their role is going to be in solving the problem, in achieving your goal. What you want them to do when you're done. And it has to be let's just go over it real quick. The call to action gives the audience members concrete tasks to tackle. And these tasks are ones that must be completed in order to bring your ideas to fruition. It has 3 characteristics. A call to action is simple. They are specific. And they are usually symbolic. Now, before you leave today, you see up here petitions. This is a petition to the state governments of Georgia and South Carolina to plant 300,000 trees to stop the erosion into the Clark Hill Reservoir, which is killing these fish. I want you to sign, as you leave today, you will need to sign one of these petitions. Don't say you will do this. Don't give them an order. Just say you need to do it and you need to get it done. Okay? It's simple. A simple act, something that everyone can do with very little effort. Okay? It's specific. No doubt should be in their mind as to what you're asking for. I need you to call your senators. And when you leave today, I am going to give you Senator Graham's and Senator the other guy's phone numbers so that you can call them today. And it needs to be symbolic. It's got to fit into your greater purpose, but there are very few things that you're going to get people to do that's going to solve whatever you want them to do with one simple, specific act. But you want to get them to commit. But remember, public commitment, you want to get them to publicly do something, at least that they see, in order to help you solve your problem. Okay? To write your call to action, you use clear, direct language. It has to be audience focused. Talk about you need to do this, or you and I together will do this. It needs to balance any cost with a benefit. So if you say, hey, listen, I know this is going to take your time. I know it's going to take effort. But when we save the fish of the Clark Hill Reservoir, you will know that you had a part in doing that. Okay? And you have to, and this goes for everything in a persuasive speech, it has to be said without hesitation. When you do your statement of purpose, don't say, when I'm done with my speech today, I hope you agree with me. No. Okay? Starting with your call to action, and what I'm going to recommend you do is when you start writing your persuasive speeches, think of that call to action first. And then every word, there's going to be, when we go over the rubric, you're going to see a check mark called persuasive intent. And what that's going to require is that everything you say is directed toward persuading that audience without hesitation and without question in your mind. So you need to eliminate phrases like, I believe. Well, we assume you believe. If I tell you that erosion and the sediments flowing into Clark Hill Reservoir are killing the fish, we know you believe it. But if you say, I believe, that opens you up for, I don't believe that, at least not yet. I think, well, I don't think. I hope. Well, is that all you've got for me? Hope? Okay? So a persuasive speech is going to be set up just like any other speech. But what you're going to have to do as you go through the entire process is focusing on that specific action you want your audience to take when it's over with. And every word that comes out of your mouth, every gesture, everything, all your nonverbals and verbals should be dedicated and directed toward making that audience believe that there is no other possible outcome at the end of this speech other than you agreeing with me and following through on my call to action that I am going to give you. And remember, that call to action has to be concrete. Okay? Now here's a word of warning. Here's the problem I have with a lot of, and this is why we don't do pet adoptions anymore in speeches in my class. First of all, because I heard it all the time. Second of all, the call to actions on those persuasive speeches were always horrible. Because they were saying, now that you know, go adopt a pet. That's not a call to action. Okay? Call to action is telling me where the Albrecht Center is, and I know about all of this because I rescued a dog out of the Albrecht Center. Go to the Albrecht Center. Here's their address. Here's the hours they're open. Go get a dog. Or a cat. Or occasionally they have bunnies. Okay? But you can't just say, hey, today I'm going to persuade you to eat healthier. And you tell us about all our bad eating habits, and then your call to action is, so when you leave here today, eat well, because that's not simple, specific, and symbolic. What would be a good call to action? So today, when you leave, here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. Go eat an apple, an orange. Go eat some raw broccoli, some uncooked cauliflower. Eat a raw fruit or vegetable today. And then tomorrow, I want you to eat 2. Okay? And all of what you say, everything you have, has got to be directed toward that call to action. I'm out of coffee, so clearly the lecture's over. Okay? All right. That's persuasive speaking. We will go over the rubric as we always do, and I will post an example. I've got one that was filmed during the height of the pandemic, and it's kind of foggy, but you can still see it, and you should still be able to see what's going on. I didn't clean the lens on my phone before I did it, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Okay, if you have any questions about persuasive speaking, if you have any questions about persuasive topics, please let me know. I'll be happy to talk to you about it. Again, I am always happy to hear from you via email. I am willing to meet with you via Zoom. I am also willing to meet with you with enough notice on campus. Okay? All right, that is it for the day. Stay safe, and we will be in touch.